بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده أما بعد. This next hadith reported by Imam Tirmidhi, he mentions that Aisha radiallahu anha, once they slaughtered a goat, and so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered Aisha radiallahu anha to give out the goat in Sadaqah, to give it to the poor, to the needy. As we have been talking about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's generosity and how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered us to also be generous in giving, especially when it comes to feeding the poor, giving those who are less fortunate. Hence, the Prophet ﷺ had this goat slaughtered and ordered Aisha radiallahu anha to give it out in Sadaqah. So the Prophet ﷺ came back home and he asked Aisha radiallahu anha, مَا بَقِيَ مِنْهَا, what is left from the goat? Meaning, how much have you given it out? What's remaining of it? And so Aisha radiallahu anha said, قالت ما بقي منها إلا كتفها. Meaning, the Aisha radiallahu anha said, everything I gave out, and only the shoulder, or one of the legs, one of the shoulders is remaining. And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he replied, and he showed, or he gave her a different way to think about it. He said, بقي كلها غير كتفها. He says, no, not only is the shoulder remaining, right? No, not only the shoulder remains, but everything else remains besides the shoulder. And what the Prophet ﷺ meant by that was, in Sadaqah you gave the rest of the whole body, and that is what remains. Meaning, on the day of Qiyammah, that weight that you have given in Sadaqah, on the day of judgment, that's what's remaining. That's what's there for you. And if the Prophet ﷺ and Aisha radiallahu anha had to consume this part of the goat, the shoulder, then that would be eaten by the Prophet ﷺ and Aisha radiallahu anha. There would be nothing really remaining of that. So the Prophet ﷺ flipped it and said, no, not the shoulder is only remaining, but actually the rest of the body which you gave out in Sadaqah, that is remaining. Because on the day of Qiyammah it will remain in your scale of good deeds. And so the Prophet ﷺ flipped it around and told Aisha radiallahu anha, what is truly remaining is that which you give out in Sadaqah. So many times we feel that we give something out in Sadaqah, or we give money or food, you may feel that you're losing something. But in reality, you're never losing something that you give out in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we went over the ayat of the Quran in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُ. Whatever you spend for the sake of Allah, it will definitely come back. You haven't lost it. Whether you will find it on your scale of good deeds, or whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give it back to you in this world, or put barakah in your business, put barakah in your work, barakah in your house. That is what the Prophet, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means by whatever you spend for the sake of Allah, it will definitely come back to you. And so in this hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, again highlighting the importance of sadaqah, of always giving. And we talked yesterday about giving to those who are less fortunate, helping those people out. In my human services class, they say in Danbury there's around 126 people that are homeless at any given time throughout the year. 126 people that are homeless in Danbury throughout the year, any given time, around 126. And I believe beds in the shelters, the city shelter as well as the Dorothy Day hospitality house for homeless shelters, there's I think 26, if I'm not mistaken, or 36. So there's almost 100 people that are sleeping on the streets here in Danbury that are poor, right? That are homeless, don't have a place to stay. Whether they're sleeping on the streets or whether they're sleeping at someone's house on the couch or in the parking lots, we have an opportunity to feed them, to help them, to give them something, and that's what the Prophet ﷺ is talking about in these ahadith, trying to encourage us to give sadaqah for the sake of Allah. Never is it wasted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will definitely get it back to you. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to act upon what has been said. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.